Oh, we got a fun fantasy football today for you as we're recapping everything from the action for Week 12 on Sunday. Lots of injuries. What's going on with Aaron Rodgers? Is Travis Etienne safe? Jamar Chase, is he going to be back for Week 13? We'll have you covered for everything coming up as we get a fun 60-minute show for you. We're also going to preview the Monday night game, big game coming up between the Colts and the Steelers as we recap and get you set for all the action there as well. So should be exciting and fun fantasy football today for you coming up right now. Welcome to the show. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Heath Cummings. That's Pete Prisco. Got an exciting fantasy football today for you. And we'll start with the headlines that we're looking at here as we get you set for everything that we're covering on today's show. Going to look at the injury dealing with Aaron Rodgers, what's going on with him. Got the Travis Etienne update for you that you need for sure to get you covered with the latest with the Jaguars running back. Going to take a look at what's going on with the Jets backfield. Michael Carter dealing with an ankle sprain. What about James Robinson? Is he going to be back now that Carter is hurt? Darnell Moomey, he could be out for the season. Elijah Mitchell's dealing with a sprained MCL. Hopefully he'll be okay. Allen Robinson, however, out for the season as well for the Rams. So another star player there down for the struggling Super Bowl champions. Let's start with the story there in Green Bay. So Aaron Rodgers dealing with what he says is a rib injury. He says that there is pain mostly that he's dealing with, but not necessarily something from anything that's going to cause him to miss any time. So Pete, you're watching the game last night. You see Aaron Rodgers leave in the third quarter. Jordan Love replaces him. Here's what Rodgers had to say. He said he couldn't really breathe and couldn't really rotate my body. And then when asked about playing Week 13 in Chicago, he says, as long as there's no major structural damage, just to further the story, we know that he's dealing with a broken thumb. He says he's going to keep playing, quote, as long as we're mathematically alive, I'd like to be out there. There's obviously a lot of other conversations that come into play once you're eliminated, and I'll be open to all those conversations. So where are you at with Aaron Rodgers going into Week 13, coming off another tough loss against Philadelphia?
Well, it doesn't sound like he injured his lungs, which is the most important thing. And, it just becomes a matter of can he handle the pain with the broken ribs or the rib injury. And if he can, then why not play on? I mean, if he's able to throw the football, he's able to handle the pain, and he's played through a bunch of stuff. You mentioned the thumb injury. But on Sunday night, he started to look like Aaron Rodgers again, which, you'd like to see that if you're the Packers, and you'd like to see that if you're a Packers fan. So if he's capable, play him. If not, hey, they got a nice alternative. It looked like Jordan Love did some really good things when he came into the game. Looked like a different quarterback. Looked much more confident, much more comfortable than he did when he played in the past. So, look, if he's able to play, you play him as long as they're, mathematically alive, like you said. If not, go to Jordan Love and you'll be okay with that.
Where are you at in terms of Rodgers as a fantasy quarterback? Because he was on his way to a decent game. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 140 yards passing before he left. Who knows if he would have gotten the third touchdown like Jordan Love did to Christian Watson. And then just the overall feeling on the Packers passing game. Looks like Watson's going to be a must-start guy rest of way. Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, where are you at with those guys?
Yeah, the Watson one's so difficult because he's not doing it in a way that we would traditionally think he could do again, but he's playing with Aaron Rodgers, and he does have that big playability, and so I think he will be a must-start guy until he has a couple of duds. Allen Lazard is getting more and more frustrating as we go. Rodgers, Pete said Jordan Love looked more comfortable than he had in the past. I thought he looked more comfortable than Aaron Rodgers has for most of this year. Just drop back on time, smooth, flowing. I'm probably going to have Rodgers as a high-end number 2 quarterback against Chicago, which is saying something because normally he's like a top 5 guy because it's the Bears.
Mike White, though, did just tear apart this team. Hopefully Rodgers can maybe have one more hurrah if he is going to shut it down at some point if, again, they get mathematically eliminated. Again, we're not counting on that, but you hear the way he's talking. Rib injury, thumb injury, out of contention. The Packers may decide just to play it safe if they are going to go with him as their starter for the 2023 campaign if things continue to go as they are going. Travis Etienne, dealing with the foot injury, was not able to finish the game against Baltimore, but we are getting reports from Doug Peterson on Monday, and according to Etienne himself, that he is expected to play in Week 13 against Detroit. So, Pete, I know you're dialed into that team. Obviously, you're going to speak to some people up there. Have you heard anything yet, though, about Travis Etienne, just piggybacking off what Doug Peterson said about the foot injury, knowing that he had the Liz Frank injury as a rookie that caused him to miss the entire season?
Well, he could have gone back in. That was the one thing, and they just decided to hold him out. Now, he actually wanted to go back in, and the coaching staff made the decision to hold him out. It is the same foot with the Liz Frank injury, so there's always concern with that whenever something comes up or pops up like that with the same foot. So there is concern, but again, he could have gone back into the game. They were cautious with him, which they should have been, but I think he plays this week, and on that track up there, I think that's a great opportunity for him to play like he did when he went up and played the Colts. He's a fast, electrifying runner, and those tracks make him a lot faster.
Heath, how are you approaching the Jaguars backfield this week, knowing that Etienne's going to be good to go, but now there's something to be a little bit cautious about. Is JaMychal Hasty somebody that's going to be on your priority list, or is it going to be Darrell Henderson? You know, Henderson was a healthy scratch, but Hasty was pretty fantastic. 12 carries for 28 yards, not the best thing, but 5 catches, 67 yards, and a touchdown. We kind of been waiting for that for Etienne in the passing game.
And he's been making some big plays when he touches the ball, spelling Travis Etienne as well. So I do think Hasty will be the priority over Henderson. What we hope is we get a full week of practice from Travis Etienne, and then there's really no question. The other complicating factor is you'd think this is the Lions. It's a dream matchup. It's fantastic. They haven't allowed a running back to score double-digit fantasy points since week 7. They've been much better against the run over the last month.
But we would have said the same thing about the Ravens' run defense too, and you saw Hasty have some plays. So hopefully Etienne, can have some production. Look, you're starting Etienne if he's healthy. The question will become, as you said, if he misses some practice time. Hasty could have an opportunity as somebody to fill in, so you should be picking him up. We'll talk about that mostly on Tuesday's show when we get to our waiver priorities. The Jets' backfield was very, very strange on Sunday for Week 12 because we got the news first that James Robinson was a healthy scratch. Okay, that was a surprising thing. Then Michael Carter goes in. He hurts his ankle when we were all expecting to play well with Mike White. So according to Robert Saleh, it's an ankle sprain. We don't know the extent of it. Saleh says that they're going to wait to see some more tests on Monday. So we'll hopefully get an answer for you soon. Stay to CBS Sports HQ and obviously CBSSports.com. We'll have that update for you as soon as we get it. When Carter leaves the game, it's Zonovan Knight, I can't even get his name right. Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson stepping in. Knight gets 14 carries, 69 yards, 3 catches, 34 yards. He was the primary running back. Ty Johnson, however, was the more productive of the two from a fantasy perspective. 5 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. 1 catch for 16 yards. So, Pete, when you take a step back at this, and you know James Robinson, again, from his days in Jacksonville, and you were saying all day yesterday, this couldn't have been something that he did. And Saleh actually said, according to The Athletic, that this was more about the running style for James Robinson Bam Knight versus James Robinson. So they wanted, I guess, a little bit more of an authoritative runner, and they felt that Knight was that guy. Your assessment of the Jets' backfield coming out of this game and how the offense looked at really as a whole with Mike White?
Well, the offense looked pretty good with Mike White. I mean, much better than it's looked, I can tell you that, with Zach Wilson in the lineup. But here's the thing, if Carter can't go, I think Robinson's obviously up and he's going to carry the football in the next week. So I think to keep an eye on that. But Knight did some really good things, and I haven't watched the tape yet, but he was impressive on the game when you watched him and did some really nice things. He's a physical runner, like they said. And I think that's something that they wanted to get more out of in that run game because Carter's that's not who he is. So it made sense to play him. So he impressed, and he's a good-looking back. And again, you can find backs anywhere.
Well, you can't find great backs everywhere, and they've been trying to replace Breece Hall. And so
where are the great backs, Jamie?
Who are the great backs? Breece Hall's a great back. They're trying to replace him, right? I mean, their run game is kind of stalled.
We don't know if he's a great back. He looked good as a rookie, but where are the great backs in the NFL right now as we talk?
Well, I mean, let's start with Christian McCaffrey. We can
Jacobs.
go to Josh Jacobs. We can go to Kenneth Walker. I mean, they're pretty great.
Eckler.
They're great backs. They're good backs. Christian McCaffrey has been great at times. He's great in that offense right now. He's good. He's not great. Derrick Henry's a great back, and he didn't exactly have a great day on Sunday. I mean, Look, the great backs, you could put them in there, plug them in, and let them play.
Okay, Mr. Anti-Running Back. We'll save that for another show. In terms of the Jets' backfield here, so let's assume Carter misses time. Pete says they'll put James Robinson back. Makes some sense. But does that mean he's the lead guy? Because it seems as if he's probably at the bottom of the pecking order here. So Tuesday's waivers come. Zonovan Knight. Bam Knight. That's what they call him. Bam Knight, Ty Johnson. How are you going to approach it?
Knight will be my priority. I think the biggest surprise was that Knight caught the most passes. And that's where you want to attack this Vikings defense with running backs. We've seen the last 2 weeks, Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson have crushed them in the passing game. The fact that Knight had the most targets and the most catches amongst running backs makes him my favorite going into the waivers.
He's going to be the number one priority among players?
Well, let's see what we hear about Michael Carter. He'll be at the top, towards the top.
Well, you got to assume that Carter's going to be limited, if not practicing at all. So we have to approach it like with that.
Assuming
no matter what
there's no optimism about Carter, I think Knight might be my favorite.
So as you're going to approach it, Knight 1, Johnson 2, Robinson 3, or does Robinson go back in the middle somewhere?
I think I'd rather have Johnson than Robinson. I don't think they're going to use him as the primary passing downs back. If they do give him 10, 12 carries, I'm afraid it's going to be on early downs when they aren't that productive anyway.
And again, they did make the trade for James Robinson, but they obviously haven't been thrilled with James Robinson. So while I agree with Pete that he will be up, he could be third just in terms of an emergency situation. The Jets' backfield was very, very strange on Sunday for Week 12 because we got the news first that James Robinson was a healthy scratch. Okay, that was a surprising thing. Then Michael Carter goes in. He hurts his ankle when we were all expecting to play well with Mike White. So according to Robert Saleh, it's an ankle sprain. We don't know the extent of it. Saleh says that they're going to wait to see some more tests on Monday. So we'll hopefully get an answer for you soon. Stay to CBS Sports HQ and obviously CBSSports.com. We'll have that update for you as soon as we get it. When Carter leaves the game, it's Zonovan Knight, I can't even get his name right. Zonovan Knight and Ty Johnson stepping in. Knight gets 14 carries, 69 yards, 3 catches, 34 yards. He was the primary running back. Ty Johnson, however, was the more productive of the two from a fantasy perspective. 5 carries, 62 yards and a touchdown, 1 catch for 16 yards. So, Pete, when you take a step back at this, and you know James Robinson, again, from his days in Jacksonville, and you were saying all day yesterday, this couldn't have been something that he did. And Saleh actually said, according to The Athletic, that this was more about the running style for James Robinson Bam Knight versus James Robinson. So they wanted, I guess, a little bit more of an authoritative runner, and they felt that Knight was that guy. Your assessment of the Jets' backfield coming out of this game and how the offense looked as a whole with Mike White?
Well, the offense looked pretty good with Mike White. I mean, much better than it's looked, I can tell you that, with Zach Wilson in the lineup. But here's the thing, if Carter can't go, I think Robinson's obviously up and he's going to carry the football in the next week. So I think to keep an eye on that. But Knight did some really good things, and I haven't watched the tape yet, but he was impressive on the game when you watched him and did some really nice things. He's a physical runner, like they said. And I think that's something that they wanted to get more out of in that run game because Carter's that's not who he is. So it made sense to play him. So he impressed, and he's a good-looking back. And again, you can find backs anywhere.
Well, you can't find great backs everywhere, and they've been trying to replace Breece Hall. And so
where are the great backs, Jamie?
Who are the great backs? Breece Hall's a great back. They're trying to replace him, right? I mean, their run game is kind of stalled.
We don't know if he's a great back. He looked good as a rookie, but where are the great backs in the NFL right now as we talk?
Well, I mean, let's start with Christian McCaffrey. We can
Jacobs.
go to Josh Jacobs. We can go to Kenneth Walker. I mean, they're pretty great.
Eckler.
They're great backs. They're good backs. Christian McCaffrey has been great at times. He's great in that offense right now. He's good. He's not great. Derrick Henry's a great back, and he didn't exactly have a great day on Sunday. I mean, Look, the great backs, you could put them in there, plug them in, and let them play.
Okay, Mr. Anti-Running Back. We'll save that for another show. In terms of the Jets' backfield here, so let's assume Carter misses time. Pete says they'll put James Robinson back. Makes some sense. But does that mean he's the lead guy? Because it seems as if he's probably at the bottom of the pecking order here. So Tuesday's waivers come. Zonovan Knight. Bam Knight. That's what they call him. Bam Knight, Ty Johnson. How are you going to approach it?
Knight will be my priority. I think the biggest surprise was that Knight caught the most passes. And that's where you want to attack this Vikings defense with running backs. We've seen the last 2 weeks, Tony Pollard and Ramondre Stevenson have crushed them in the passing game. The fact that Knight had the most targets and the most catches amongst running backs makes him my favorite going into the waivers.
He's going to be the number one priority among players?
Well, let's see what we hear about Michael Carter. He'll be at the top, towards the top.
Well, you got to assume that Carter's going to be limited, if not practicing at all. So we have to approach it like with that.
Assuming
no matter what
there's no optimism about Carter, I think Knight might be my favorite.
So as you're going to approach it, Knight 1, Johnson 2, Robinson 3, or does Robinson go back in the middle somewhere?
I think I'd rather have Johnson than Robinson. I don't think they're going to use him as the primary passing downs back. If they do give him 10, 12 carries, I'm afraid it's going to be on early downs when they aren't that productive anyway.
And again, they did make the trade for James Robinson, but they obviously haven't been thrilled with James Robinson. So while I agree with Pete that he will be up, he could be third just in terms of an emergency situation. All right, Elijah Mitchell suffering a possible sprained MCL, according to Kyle Shanahan. Says it's not as serious as the one that he suffered in week 1 and not the same knee. So we'll see what's going on there. He had 7 carries for 35 yards, 2 catches for 8 yards on 2 targets before leaving. Now, McCaffrey was also, Pete says he's not a great back, but McCaffrey was dealing with a knee irritation, according to Kyle Shanahan, but he did return. He finished with a minimal production, 11 carries, 32 yards, 4 catches for 17 yards on 6 targets. Jordan Mason came in as the third guy. He had 5 carries for 25 yards, and they also had Deebo Samuel dealing with a quad contusion, according to Shanahan, but he had 3 catches, 43 yards on 7 targets, 2 carries for no yards. He did return after getting hurt as well. So, Pete, when you look at this backfield, we know it's so important to this team and how they function. McCaffrey sounds like he's fine. Mason, though, looks like he's going to be the second guy up. Deebo Samuel's a little bit banged up. Is their rushing offense at the point you think that they're comfortable with, knowing that they got these injuries right now?
Well, there has to be because that's who they are. I mean, everything they do is predicated on being able to run the football. Now, they didn't run the ball on Sunday, and you look at what the production was in the offense. It was minimal. I mean, they didn't have a great day on offense, and they struggled across the board. They have to be able to run the ball. So whoever's back there has to run the football. And, you know, those great numbers for that great back for Christian McCaffrey were very limited on Sunday. So, yes, no matter who's playing, they have to run the football because that's who they are. And if you can't run the football, it puts an awful lot of pressure on a passing game that is based on being able to run the football.
Knowing that we've seen Mitchell get some production, again, talking about waivers, because McCaffrey sounds like he's going to be fine. We'll obviously be starting him, except for Pete. Jordan Mason, how much of a priority are you putting on him now as maybe the handcuff in case McCaffrey's injury risk becomes a problem again?
With the optimism we have about McCaffrey right now, I think Mason would be behind JaMychal Hasty, would definitely be behind the Jets guys. But he would be someone that's still going to be likely a top 5 running back. And if there is less optimism about McCaffrey, then Mason could move to the top of the list.
And just one more note on this, just keep an eye on Tyrion Davis-Price, who's a guy that they've also used at times. He was a healthy scratch, but now with maybe if Mitchell has to miss some time, TDP gets activated, and he could be also in the mix too. So I think you're right, Heath. Mason's a low priority as long as McCaffrey is going to be practicing, but still somebody you want to keep an eye on. The Bears' injury situation went from bad to worse, so Justin Fields did not play on Sunday dealing with the shoulder concern, and then their number one receiver, Darnell Moomey, suffered an ankle injury. According to the NFL Network, could be torn ligaments and could be lost for the season. So Trevor Siemian stepped in for Fields. He was, Trevor Siemian, 14 of 25, 179 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. This Bears offense, though, obviously in a bad spot going against the Packers on Week 13. Just your assessment from this offense now and knowing that Darnell Moomey may be lost for the season.
Yeah, one quick thing about the 49ers. They'll get a nice look at Jeff Wilson this week, by the way, if they want to take a look across the field and see somebody they once had. I mean, let's be real. Yeah, look, the Bears' offense is terrible. I mean, Justin Fields creates things with his legs. He brings excitement to the offense. He livens it up. Trevor Siemian's a dink-and-dunk quarterback who's not going to drive the ball down the field. And now without Mooney, you have no real speed on the outside, no real game changer on the outside to even try and hit those passes. So it's limited. I think Kmet obviously will be a guy that benefits from that even more so, particularly Fields is back. But this offense is bad, and it's not going to get any better.
So 2 questions for you, Heath. First off, if Fields does return, does Mooney's injury even faze you at all? Because it's not like Mooney was making his fantasy production.
No, I think that Chase Claypool can do most of the things that Darnell Mooney can do. So I would say the Packers matchup compared to the matchups Fields had before the injury would scare me a little bit, but he'd still be a top 10 quarterback for sure. After
what Jalen Hurts just did, it wouldn't scare me at all, to be honest with you. In terms of Claypool and Cole Kmet, without Mooney there, what changes for you in terms of, you're going to be looking to add Claypool at all? Deeper leagues?
Deeper leagues for sure. He'd move into that boom-bust flex range. Not a top 36 wide receiver unless we have 4 or 6 teams on a bye, but that boom-bust flex that could give you a 20-point day if everything goes perfectly. Kmet stays in that tight end 12 to 15 range. He's probably going to need a touchdown. There's just not enough targets, even without Mooney there.
Yeah, hopefully Fields does come back just from the Bears fan perspective, for fantasy managers perspective, but if there is no... if it's Trevor Siemian again, hello Packers DST. Make sure you pick him up because it could be a fantastic situation for them. And speaking of DSTs against offenses, the Seahawks DST is somebody you're going to want to take a look at because Allen Robinson now lost for the season. Now, he did not play in Week 12 dealing with a foot injury that, according to Sean McVay, is going to require surgery, and the NFL Network saying that is a stress fracture in his foot. So, Pete, just put some words to the lost season for the Rams. They are maybe going to get Matthew Stafford back. I don't know why he would try and rush back with the neck injury and the multiple concussions, but this is just a terrible, terrible Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah, shut them all down. I mean, seriously, shut Matt Stafford down. There's no reason for him to play at all. I mean, just get on to next season. And again, you sell your soul to get a ring. It worked. Now you got to deal with the consequences of it, and that's what they're dealing with here. And it might be a couple years before they come out from underneath this. So you won the title, you got the ring, good for you, but now this is what you have to deal with.
Van Jefferson, interest level in him, 41% roster, scored a touchdown. He's now scored in 2 of 3 games. Bryce Perkins, at least, was able to get him going a little bit. Tyler Higbee had no production, but who knows how healthy he was.
Right.
They get Seattle in Week 13. Not the worst matchup.
No, I would say if we could hear something that says, Higbee wasn't right last week and he's going to be better this week, then I'd probably have Higbee just ahead of Kmet. Otherwise, he'd be just behind Kmet. And I think Van Jefferson just behind Chase Claypool in that could have a big day, but also just zero floor.
I'd rather have Jefferson if Siemian is starting. I'd rather have Claypool if Fields is back, but just something to consider. And the Bears still have their bye in Week 14. One positive note, we got some good news on Monday that Chase Claypool is going to play in Week 13. He was close to playing in Week 12. So obviously you're starting Jamar Chase when it comes to, what did I say, Chase Claypool?
Yep.
You're starting Jamar Chase. Excuse me, we got good news on Jamar Chase. Chase Claypool got good news with Darnell Moomey as well. But Jamar Chase, you're starting, going to return in Week 13 for a big game between the Bengals and the Chiefs. So must start wide receiver for Jamar Chase. Still must start for T. Higgins. Unfortunately, Tyler Boyd's last 2 games, easy to move on from him.